And thirdly, I think, is the efficiency with which manufacturing industry and agriculture is doing. Right now, in fact, it's for the whole world. Agriculture, manufacturing industry get subsidized by governments, so that water costs practically nothing to them. So this is the end result. Even for kilogram vegetable, it takes 2,000 liters. It's unthinkable. It points to a high inefficiency in the use of water. So I repeat just 3 points: save water, lifestyle, and the efficiency with which water is being used. That ends my presentation, more or less, on water. Okay, and I'll talk about a climate gate when people claim that IPCC make a mistake in terms of the time when glaciers would disappear altogether. And the report mentioned something like the timing like 2035. Actually, the calculation was for 2350. So we're talking about 300 years, an error of 300 years in IPCC's report. But I think that error is only academic, because if you look at this graph here, it's made by World Glacier Monitoring Service, which I think is based in Switzerland, and they monitor the ice cover in glaciers, in 30 representative glaciers throughout the world for the past 30 years. And what we are seeing, that there's a consistent, in fact, we only got 2 or 3 years that's a plus. For the past 30 years, consistently the glaciers are losing the ice. And if you look at the latest trend, the loss is accelerating. So even though Himalayas ice cap may disappear in 300 years' time, the ice cover is actually disappearing at a fast rate. And if we recall that only a couple of months ago, Vietnam and Cambodia had to speak to China because of water shortage. Why? Because Himalayas alone, can somebody guess the meltwater from Himalayas, how many people are dependent on meltwater from the Himalayas? Can anybody make a guess? Several billion? No. We only get something like 7 billion, 5 billion people all together in the world. We are talking about 200 million. And these people were in India, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, of course China. And if we lose that water, that means 200 million people will be in trouble. So, can Hong Kong survive in isolation? Hong Kong being so closely knitted to these places in terms of trade, tourism, and export, import, and manufacturing like that. So I think this is one point that we should all take note, the disappearance of glaciers. And for Hong Kong, I'll digress a little bit since I'm talking about water. I'll talk about water level for Hong Kong. From time to time we get storm surges because when a typhoon comes, it will bring a raised sea level. And water level in Hong Kong has been rising consistently over the past 50 years. In fact, we are talking about 14 centimeters rise over the past 50 years. And that rise is going to accelerate according to our studies as well as estimates made by scientists over the past 2 years. in the light of new evidence. And sea level is going to rise. Something like conservatively, it's going to rise 0.6 meter by the end of this century. That's the most conservative. And research over the past couple of years, since the 2007 IPCC report, was that scientists are more pessimistic, and they're pointing to something like 1 to 2 meters by the end of this century. So why I'm saying this? Because in the middle column, we're looking at a raised sea level of 0.59 by the end of this century, according to IPCC. 1.4 is the latest, which I made out of recent studies by overseas scientists, international studies. 1.4, and the storm surge that would bring some damage to us would be, at the present, would be something like 3.5 meter storm surge, and right now it's a 50-year event. 3.5. 3.5 is what? Is this? We had Typhoon Hagopit 2 years ago. It's a 3.5 storm surge, and you're looking at the picture taken at Taiwan, and this is 3.5. And if you look back at the figures, with a rise in sea level, 3.5 meter would become a 2-year event by the end of this century. And with a rise of 1.4, that would be worse. And in fact, with a rise of 1.4, with or without typhoon, we will get flooding in Taiwan and in low-lying areas in Hong Kong twice a month, with or without typhoon, because of springtime, simply because of springtime. Springtime meaning that the sun, moon are aligned together, and that pulls the water. And Hong Kong, we have 2 spring tides each month. And with a rise of 1.4 meter, we are flooding, irrespective of whether we get typhoons, twice a month. So, while our society may be affluent, Hong Kong may be affluent, but if we look at the coastline of the Pearl River Delta, that's a long coastline, and I don't think Hong Kong can stay safely in isolation. I think some planning has to be made for the whole area. So with that, I would like to update you something about the latest on the weather this year. This year we still have El Nino. That's going to last till the middle of this year. Because of El Nino, we expect that this spring, March to May, will be a wet spring. That's so far so good. I think we had a wet spring, like what we had this morning. And typhoons won't affect us before June. So far I think we are okay up to this point. 2 more weeks to go, and then we look forward to some typhoons. Thank you.